Welcome to Talking Giants, presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby McKinney, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick. And we've got our first reporter interview of the offseason. We got Ryan Dunleavy of the New York Post, the Tony Award, the third annual Tony Award winner. So glad to have him on. Now that the defensive coordinator, position coaches, everything's set in stone, Justin, we could finally start, figuring this offseason out.
Yeah, and I'm even excited for the combine too, because I feel like some of the information that Dunleavy talked about may be outdated once it gets to the combine and we have an idea, especially with free agency stuff, and there's some draft rumors that pick up. But Bobby, I don't say this often, because if I said that every episode of Talking Giants was a must listen, that would just be a flat out lie, and then you wouldn't believe me when I said it was.
For some people, it is.
No, but I'm saying, like, I'm talking about even like the masses, like, oh, I'm gonna click in every once in a while, or I'm only going to click into the big episodes. Like, you wouldn't think an episode that we put out on February 20th is a big episode. This is a must listen. This really is a must listen. I mean, last year, I remember one of the biggest nuggets that Dunleavy dropped was, Cordell Flott in his position and what some of the coaching staff and how the scout or how they view him, right? That was a big nugget last year, just because, the Giants won 9 games. They won a playoff game, and there was nothing really big and dramatic going on. Now there's big and dramatic stuff going on, and Dunleavy brings it from start to finish, whether it is with the Kafka stuff, what the front office is thinking even about Daboll, and then obviously ending it off with some free agency stuff. So this is a must listen, can't miss episode of Talking Giants.
What I like about Dunleavy is he makes it clear, like, okay, this is like informed. This is my opinion on this. So
he even made it clear where it was like, other people have reported this, but this is what I know. And I even liked how he distinguished all that. It's like, yeah, well, we know that other people may know other stuff, but he's like, this is what I know. And I'm like, I love it. He's a transparent dude, which I love.
That's why I won the Tony Award. Justin, right. Who's bringing us this episode?
Oh, Factor is bringing us this episode, and I'm serious. When I say that Factor is the sponsor and the partner that has kind of changed my life the most, I mean it, because it's a meal, something that I could get every week. I've been doing every other week, because I've just been loading up on some other meals, and sometimes sometimes I'll have Factor for lunch and dinner. But I've been usually just having it for dinner recently. So I get like 12 meals. Sometimes I feel 8, sometimes I feel 12 every other week. Sometimes I get it every week. And you could customize it. That's the best thing. I could go in my Factor order, microwavable, ready meals. I put it right on my plate, and it looks like I'm having a gourmet meal, and it tastes great. So I 100% mean this. So I could go on the website. I could be like, I want to skip this week, or I could customize whether I want a more protein, if I want a veggie option, if I want calorie smart options. There's even keto and vegan options in there too. So the
vegan stuff is actually good. Like I get some of the vegan stuff in mine, right? Like mine's not the vegan plan, but like I got the vegan chili, and I was like, this is legitimately good. I was eating it during our John Boy Media meeting last week. So it's I love Factor. I want them to sponsor us more.
I know, John. Well, we need Giant Factor throughout the regular season. And for shits and gigs, I was like, I'm going to get the steak. They have steak. And, usually like you don't microwave steak. That's a big no-no. It takes out the juices and the flavor and the stuff like that. It was awesome. It was absolutely awesome. And it was cooked like medium rare, which that's exactly how I love my steak. So head to factormeals.com/Giants50 and use code Giants50. Get 50% off. That's huge. That's code Giants50 at factormeals.com/Giants50 to get 50% off. Factor will change your life. It changed mine. And Bobby Skinner, you'll be glad you did.
You'll be glad you did. And here's Ryan Dunleavy. All right, we now welcome on to the program, Tony Award winner, the third annual Ryan Dunleavy of the New York Post. Ryan Dunleavy, what's it like to be an award winner on? And I would like to apologize that you don't have your shirt or trophy yet.
I'll get them soon enough. I don't know how many Tony Award winners have then talked to Kadarius Toney a week after winning the Tony Award. I don't know. I don't know.
Did you tell him that you won that award?
I did not. Him and I would not say we are good friends. He saw me. I said, Kadarius, do you have a minute? He said, I guess. I asked one softball, and then I asked. So we all saw the tweet that said, you think the Chiefs are making up injuries. And he said, I'm healthy. And I said, so then what were you trying to say in the tweet? He said, I explained that on Twitter. You saw that. I said, yeah, but he said, so why are you asking me that? And I was like, well, because it's what people are interested. But why are you asking me that now? Well, because yeah, that's what I thought. Next question. So I did not then go, well, I won an award named after you. It wasn't a natural segue.
That
Well, I don't
sounds like
feel
a
like
great
there's-
way to break the ice.
There's no natural segues in the Kadarius Toney interview, and that's why the interview is named after him.
Yes.
But yeah, so we thought this year that I would send this stuff to Justin and hand it to you personally, but that's just hasn't happened. So I think,
Well, it's going to.
yeah. But you're supposed to have the trophy and the shirt on for the interview, and unfortunately,
you know what? Have me back another time. I enjoy coming on with you guys. We'll do one in the spring or something, and I'll have it by then.
That's what
Yeah,
that's what the van series is for.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, well, we do this. We have like wrap up. The draft in the spring, and then the van you can bring.
I'll
it
wear like a sweater underneath, and then I'll do a big reveal.
Oh,
I'll have it on underneath the sweater. Yeah.
So, this is the last Tony question because I know that's not what people are listening to this for. We noticed this year that there was a lack of acknowledgement of the Tony Award like in years past. I feel like your colleagues were very salty that it wasn't theirs this year.
I did notice that. I noticed when I listened to your podcast and you brought it up, I noticed that too. I don't know why there was not a lot of, hey, great job, congratulations. Maybe, I don't know. It's a good question. There's often back patting on the beat, like, hey, good scoop. It's not one of those beats that ignores each other's scoops. So I was surprised, but this just means that next year, when whoever wins it, when I'm ineligible, I don't have to go out of the way to tell them.
wow. Great call.
I'll just acknowledge that you guys do a great job, but not who won the award.
I like it. I like it.
As I like to say, I take a lot of pride in being a very, very petty man. Okay?
Let's get into the Giants now that we've wrapped up Tony. I'm the more and more we do it, it's just becoming a regular award. So it's hard to talk about it all year long, like when it was first and fresh. But I was glad that you got the win on it.
I appreciated it.
Let's get the Kafka stuff. Let's talk about this. Because Mike Kafka is still here. He got the assistant head coach promotion. At the end of the season, I basically did my own anonymous poll of asking anyone I could, what do you think Mike Kafka's gone? And I got every single person said, yes, he's gone. And then the Senior Bowl asked, and people told me that, hey, they're not going to let him work, do lateral interviews. Did Kafka want out? Was there a smoothing over? Like, how did this all go down with Mike Kafka?
So my sources tell me over the course of whatever it was, 3-4 months, yes, he wanted out. I don't know to the extent of how bad his relationship was with Daboll. Obviously, there's reporting by some of the other reporters on the beat that talks about some of the things where they butted heads. But my own sources have told me that Mike Kafka wanted out, wanted a lateral position, wanted to become an offensive coordinator somewhere else because he believes that Brian Daboll will be the offensive play caller this year. So a lateral move is not necessarily a lateral move because believes he's going to have his play calling duties stripped. So that makes offensive coordinator with play calling duties somewhere else more than a lateral move. It makes it promotion. It makes it keeping his current job. So yes, I think I said in December, I put the over under at 2.5 coordinator changes. I thought for sure Kafka was gone. I thought Wink was the wild card there. Obviously, it turns out Wink was gone and Kafka staying. I think what happened once McGahee was fired and the Wink situation became the public disaster that it was for both parties. Let's be clear, it wasn't just for the Giants. Didn't work out well for Wink either. I think then it became kind of a PR management situation, crisis management situation where the Giants didn't like the optics of losing all three coordinators. It wasn't an untenable situation with Kafka. So they were able to bring him back, give him a promotion. With a promotion and a title change comes more money, which probably placates him. But make no mistake, guys, when you go, Mike Kafka interviewed for the Seattle head coaching job. He didn't get it. In the course of those interviews, anyone I talk to tells you it would be stunning if he wasn't asked, hey, if we go in a different direction, would you be interested in running our offense too? So the Seahawks don't just blindly put in maybe Mike Kafka would be interested in this. No, they know he would be interested in that job. The only reason he'd be interested in that job was because he doesn't think he likes his place with the Giants. The Seahawks aren't blindly asking for permission. They already know Kafka wants them to do that, and then the Giants block it. So I think that tells you there was some unhappiness on both sides. Optics take over. They figure out it's not a totally untenable situation. How can we make this work? Well, it's good for us if you stay. It's good for you if you get a little extra money. Let's make it work for one more year.
Do you think Brian Daboll will call plays this year?
I do. Yes. I've thought that since the middle of last year. I do believe he called plays during the second half of that Arizona game. I've heard that many times. I don't know if he called plays at any other point after that. Other people have reported yes. I can't confirm that. So I don't know if Shea Tierney called plays at some point. Other people have reported that. I can't confirm that. But I do know that Daboll, or at least sources have told me Daboll called plays during the second half of that Arizona game. And I do know Brian Daboll, and I know Brian Daboll is the kind of guy who, when he is on the hot seat, as he will be this season, he is not the kind of guy to go down without it being in his total control. He's the kind of guy who is going to do everything he can. He's going to take power into his own hands. He's not going to go down with Mike Kafka calling the plays. He's going to go to, my strength is my play calling. If I get fired, it's going to be because I didn't do my job, not because my lieutenants didn't do their job.
So it's one thing to just, take over offensive meetings, right? Like, I think Daboll had every right to do that. And even if Kafka still called the plays, I would be fine with him taking over essentially the offensive meetings. He's an offensive coach. But if he calls plays, why doesn't he have a mindset of optics be damned? I want to get an offensive coordinator in here who's not going to call the plays, but at least it more aligned with my vision. Whether, maybe even Davis Webb, who had a successful year as the Denver QB coach, or just upgrading Tierney. And because like you said, he is on the hot seat and he's going to be judged on his performance and not the optics of this offseason.
I think you answered your own question, is because the guy would have been Tierney and he's in the room anyway. So, it's not like he was going to go outside and bring in somebody else to replace Mike Kafka, who was going to have all these new ideas. He was going to replace him with a guy who's going to be in the room anyway. So what's the difference, basically?
Okay.
And you don't
Justin?
think that
you understand what I'm saying, right?
I think more or less the questions that we have are surrounding Kafka. It's not necessarily about who's going to replace Kafka. It's a matter of Mike Kafka's role and Mike Kafka and Brian Daboll's relationship, and Brian Daboll's relationship with his assistants, that maybe they're unhappy with Brian Daboll. And Mike Kafka certainly seems to be in that boat. At least the thing that I think that he would learn from the Wink Martindale situation is, even if they had an uncomfortable relationship in 2022, all right, we'll be one, so we'll just make it work. We'll just make it work. Clearly, it didn't work in 2023, and things came to a head. Why not, if this is something that a coach wants, and if you're not going to grant a up-and-coming coach that has gotten 2 head coaching interviews in back-to-back off-seasons and has made it to final rounds of both jobs and both of the off-seasons, why not grant him what he wants, letting him go if you're not going to provide him the opportunity to call plays and excel in which he's in a role that he's trying to excel at? No, do you understand that? What I'm saying?
I do, but I think the NFL is about self-preservation, and I think for Brian Daboll, it still makes it look like, here's another guy who wanted out, another guy who wanted out from my coaching staff. if I can salvage it. And obviously, when I say Kafka wasn't unhappy, I think you guys probably could tell from Mike Kafka's podium interviews what I know about him from asking about him. He's not the explosive, kick and scream, cause a problem kind of guy. He's generally follow the chain of command, not create a stir kind of guy. So like you throw him a little extra money, he's, his family's comfortable here. He just kind of goes with the flow and says, okay, we can make this work more than Wink, kicking and screaming or whatnot. Right. They just kind of basically, it's like when you're in a relationship and it's like, should we break up? And it's like, I think we can make it work, basically, is I think where they're at now. I don't think they're back in love. I don't think they're, fighting every single night like, on the verge of a breakup. I just think it's kind of like they've reached the point in the relationship where they're just like coexisting.
So I guess basically it seems to, like, really what it seems to come down for me is, for Brian Daboll's side, can Brian Daboll mend the Mike Kafka relationship without him calling plays? And is Mike Kafka's vision and relationship with Brian Daboll and the Giants, does it come down to him calling the offensive plays? Because it seems to me, and again, I don't know Kafka, I'm not in the building, we're not around them every day, but it seems like to me, Kafka's relationship with Brian Daboll and the Giants improves if that's I'm going to be the offensive play caller. That's what it seems to be. Is it that black or white?
I mean, I think he would be happier. Yeah. I mean, I think it would be better for his career. Yeah. But I would say yes, he would be happier in that regard. But again, I don't think he's a rock the boat kind of guy where if he's not calling plays, he'll still give you his best effort and, look to move. And for his sake, like I said, I think his family he doesn't have to move his family. I think it shows that he can work in different kind of situations. Like there's different positives that Kafka will say. If he goes somewhere else and it doesn't work, then, he's the old James Betcher, like you're on the head coach trajectory in Arizona, you come to the Giants, people think you're going to be a coach, you flop, and now you're 5 years later and you're a linebackers coach, right? Like, so Mike Kafka goes somewhere else and it doesn't work, and then all of a sudden he's never getting another head coaching interview again, right? Like he's established himself with the Giants as a head coaching candidate. Say he goes to Seattle or goes somewhere else and has a bad year, he might never be considered a head coaching candidate again. So like this seems to be working for him. So maybe just stay in this role, bide your time for another year. And who knows, maybe you're the interim coach by December if the Giants are 3-12.
Please.
Let's hope not. With Daboll, to wrap it up on this, is like you said, with Wink, there was no smoothing it over because of the personality that Wink Martindale is, and he kind of took his ball and went home, even mid-season, right? Has there been conversations, whether it's Mara or Joe Schoen, with Daboll, and a realization that there needs to be changes in the way he does business? Because we know he's capable of being a really good coach, but how you handle people is obviously as big a part of the job as it is calling plays and creating game plans.
That will be the number one question Joe Schoen gets asked at the combine. That will be the number one question. That might be the only question John Mara gets asked at the owners' meetings in March. My understanding is yes, that those conversations, they don't blame Brian Daboll. Inside the Giants building, they very much are, rally around their guy, blame the outsider. Wink was more the problem. But yes, there has been a message inside of, yes, this needs to get fixed. Whether it was you who started it, you who didn't patch it up, you need to find a way to make it work, whether it's your fault or not. So there needs to be you need to change something to make these so that this doesn't happen again with this incarnation of your staff.
Which I feel like is the right approach for them.
No, they will rally around their guy, support him, and then also say you need to find a way to make it work. Remember, John Mara wanted to fire Tom Coughlin after his third season and was talked into like Coughlin, the leadership committee, the players, let Coughlin try it this way, et cetera, et cetera. So I think John very much wants to say, oh, coaches can change.
Is there any indication, you bring up Mara, I know he hasn't spoken, you said I guess there's going to be some sound bites that we'll get from him in March. Is there any indication on where he's at, his patience level with this regime, expecting results versus letting Schoen and Daboll continue to go about their process? They talk about process all the time and let it go its course. Any indication on kind of where he's at all, or we kind of got to wait and see for March?
Yeah, I think I've heard mixed things. I have heard he's impatient. That wouldn't be a surprise. We've all seen him kick garbage cans and throw chairs, right? So, like, I heard he was very, very caught off guard with how bad this past season went. But he does believe in, that he's had too quick a trigger in the past. I would imagine he's wrestling quite a bit internally with the direction of this and, the idea of what to do if another bad season happens, because he certainly doesn't want to keep changing general managers. That's the last thing he wants to do. So is there any scenario, guys, where you keep Joe Schoen but don't have Brian Daboll? That's one of the things that's risky. Everybody celebrated how tight at the hip these two were when they were hired. And like, as a positive, well, that's great. Except if it doesn't work, now do you have to fire both guys, or can you really have a Giants that are Joe Schoen's Giants without Brian Daboll? I mean that
doesn't feel like it.
Right?
I feel like the answer has to be that they both would get a year 4 unless it goes like complete utter disaster. Because to me, Daboll's done a better job than Joe Schoen, but you kind of need to let a GM, like, he's not a doofus, right? Even if he hasn't had the best decisions yet, he's not a total doofus. You kind of got to let these guys work a 4-year plan.
The bar has to be above. You're not Dave Gettleman, like,
right? But that's what I'm saying. Like, giving these guys, again, unless it gets total disaster this year, a 4th year, as long as it's not a total disaster.
Well, what's a total disaster? Is 5-12 again a total disaster?
I feel like it depends on how that 5-12 looks and how, and honestly, more than the wins and losses, how this offseason goes.
Yes.
If that 5-12 includes another 2-8, then I think it's a disaster. And honestly, I think it comes down to the start, where it's every year. I think that's every year where it's gone bad for the Giants, and even the one year where it went right. I mean, you saw such a fast, explosive start. And one of the things that I don't even know if this is a question, Ryan, but I was re-listening to the Joe Schoen presser today.
I saw your tweet.
And, this is the line that I kind of rewatching it. This is the one line that really stuck out during the rewatch that we didn't see the first time, but especially knowing now what we know about Kafka and Wink and, Daboll's kind of impulsivity with some decisions as a coach. This is what Joe Schoen said. We're still in year 2, so things were pretty good in year 1. He mentioned how they got off to such a fast start in 2022. Maybe you didn't see where all the issues were, whether it was in the building, on the team, in the coaching staff, and then of course the rose-colored glasses line. He mentioned that a few times there too. Are they simply through this process of drafting, free agency, on field? He even gets specific to, strength and conditioning. Is it really just going to be, Wink? You kind of hinted at it, no, already, because they're going to look at Daboll internally. But is it just going to be Wink Martindale was the issue, was the problem? That was the problem child, and we're going to continue to go about it. Like I don't know. Like, I'll leave it open ended. You saw that I already tweeted about that, so you have some thoughts.
The Giants' MO. The Giants' MO is like, we got rid of the problems, everything's okay, and never really fix the just toss it out and then, act like everything's better. That has been their MO for a decade, rather than really do a deep cleanse. So you sign a bad free agent or whatever, just get rid of that free agent, not fix the scouting process that led to that, fix the pro personnel department for 10 years. Waste first round picks. Well, okay, well, that was just a bad pick. Well, no, get to the process. So their MO is like blame Wink, he's out the door, not fix the actual problem. Like, how did it fester to this point? They let Joe Judge and Dave Gettleman not talk to each other for like 4 months. Like, how did they think that was how did they think that was a good idea? That the head coach and GM wanted different quarterbacks when Daniel Jones was hurt. They wanted to sign different quarterbacks. How did they think that was going to be resolved? So, yes, they've been for 10 years a very like surface level cleaning rather than a deep cleanse. It'll be very interesting to see how they handle this, if they do the deep cleanse on the root of the problems, or they just act like, oh, everything's fixed now that, Shane Bowen will just fall in line. He'll be the good soldier for Brian Daboll.
It's ironic to hear that is like, if that's their thinking. I mean, you look at the defensive rankings and you look at the offensive rankings. The last 2 years, the defense is better. So that's also strange.
Really?
To hear.
I disagree. I think the offense has been better over a 2-year period.
Oh, you know what? You guys should do a podcast. Justin, you could be Wink Martindale, because that's what he said to Brian Daboll is, your offense sucks. My defense is carrying us. We'd be better in the stats if your offense could do its part of the bargain. And Bobby, you could beat Brian Daboll and say, I'm getting more out of my talent than you're getting out of your talent. So that's basically the argument they had, is the one you guys just had.
Well, I'm talking about over obviously the defense was better I'm talking about over a 2-year period. All right, Ryan Dunleavy, why don't you close the hole in your face for a second, because it's time to talk about DraftKings. Get in on the action with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. New customers who deposit $5 or more can get a no-sweat bet up to $1,000 back on a bonus bet. If you're going to bet on the NBA, bet on under on Ben Simmons. I just cannot believe he's still on my Nets team. We did fire Vaughn though, so that's happy. That's my joy as a Nets fan, is just firing the people I don't like, which is almost all of them. Download fire Joe Tsai. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code WORLD. New customers can get a no-sweat bet up to $1,000 if your first bet loses. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code WORLD. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in West Virginia, www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. One no sweat bet per new customers issued as one bonus bet based on amount of initial losing bet. Bonus bets expires 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/promos for deposit, wagering, and eligibility restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. You'll be glad you did. All right, let me think of another question for you, Ryan Dunleavy. The biggest decision they have to do that will shape their future is quarterback. Even though they don't have an easy answer on the menu, what is the how do they view that position from owner to head coach? Because they've left every door open in the press conference answers.
I don't believe from my sources that they view Daniel Jones the same way that they viewed him at this time last offseason, when it was like, we cannot lose Daniel Jones. Do I think there's a chance he's still QB1 going into the next season? Yeah, I do. I mean, I think there's a very good chance that they use their second pick, whether that's a second round pick or trade up to a second first round pick. I do think there's a chance that that's what they end up doing at quarterback. And then you're looking at the JJ McCarthy's, Michael Penix's, Bo Nix, somebody like that in after picking a Romo Dunze or a Malik Neighbors at 6. I think that's possible. I do think there will be competition for Daniel Jones one way or the other. But every decision they make, this is why it was smart that you guys started with like Wink and Daboll. Like, every decision they make, I really feel like has to be colored by what timeline are Wink and Shane on. Like, if you're going to let them pick a quarterback at 6 overall, then you must know that they're going to be here beyond this season, no matter how bad things go. Otherwise, let's just pick a guy. You're going to let them pick Jaden Daniels at 6 or trade up to 3 and pick Jaden Daniels or Drake May. And that guy's going to sit on the bench for like a couple games and then take over for Daniel Jones and have his, unless he's CJ Stroud, have his typical rookie struggles. And then you're going to fire these two guys. And the next GM and the next coach are going to come in and inherit your second year guy plus the Daniel Jones contract. And it's going to say, that guy's going to say, well, I like pure pocket passers, and I have Jaden Daniel, so now I have to start over at quarterback. So, I feel like if you're going to let them pick a quarterback high in this draft, then you must know that they're on a bit more of a timeline than 1 year. I feel like every decision they make has to be colored by how much patience they have in Daboll and Schoen. If you're John Mara and you feel like these guys are leading the ship astray and they're kind of on the hot seat, I'm very reluctant to greenlight them picking a quarterback, especially a Jaden Daniels, who might have to sit for half the rookie season. I'm very reluctant to do that. And they should be reluctant to do that. If you're Daboll and Schoen, guys, and you feel you're on the hot seat, don't you need to put every resource into win now to make sure that you can have the best team? I'm not going to use one of my 3 premium resources, like say a free agent contract, a second round pick, and a first round pick are my 3 big things I can do. And I'm going to put one of those into a rookie quarterback who's going to sit, and I'm going to have either a $40 million backup in Daniel Jones or the number 6 pick as a backup quarterback when I have holes at right tackle, 2 guards, quarterback number 1 or 2, probably safety number 1, probably running back number 1, probably wide receiver number 1, and I'm going to have a $40 million quarterback and a number 6 pick and tied up 2 assets like that in quarterback. I mean, if I'm those guys and I feel like I have to win, how am I picking a quarterback? So I think everything, especially quarterback, has to be painted through the glass of Schoen, Daboll, and Mara better be on the same timeline of what their future is with this organization.
I want to unpack that because there's a lot in there. So you mentioned that they don't view Daniel Jones the same way they did last year. That sounds like the Schoen Daboll side of this. And you talked about winning now. I mean, did Tyrod Taylor open their eyes a little bit? That hey, and I don't think Tyrod Taylor was particularly really good, but he did create explosives that have this offense has been begging for, where if they were able to trade up into the top 3 and get one of those, a quarterback they believed in, I do think that would help them in their ability to keep their jobs, to get that second year with the guy that they brought. Is do you get the sense from the Schoen Daboll side that they would want to do that, even though that may not even be on the menu because those 3 teams could just stay pat?
I get the sense that there is questions in the building as to why the offense looked so much, not just Tyrod, Tommy threw the ball down the field too. Why did the offense look so much more explosive with any quarterback not named Daniel Jones? There is definitely, and when I say that, I don't just mean Schoen Daboll. I mean, some of the assistant coach mentioned that to me. Some of the players have mentioned that to me. It's interesting that our offense looked much more explosive down the field, took more shots with the other quarterbacks. There are people in the building who know when you ask them that question, their answer is, hey, whoever's telling you that isn't looking at the offensive line situation. Daniel played behind.
You have 2022 as well, where that's also the thing that bothers me, is that people forget that exists. But I know you're saying what you're hearing. Go ahead.
Yes, I would agree with you. Is people would tell you, hey, Daniel played behind a significantly worse offensive line, and not just that left tackle, than the other 2 guys did. I mean, if you think those 2 guys were playing behind a D offensive line, Daniel was playing behind an F offensive line. But yes, Justin, to your point, they didn't take a lot of shots downfield in 2022 either.
And they tapered the offense away from it in 2022 when those shots were there and they wouldn't take them.
Daniel is capable of running, and I think Daniel defers to running very quickly. He knows he can do it. It's in his back pocket, and I think he falls back on it It's been hammered into him not to put the ball in harm's way. So I think he very quickly, when you take the Jason Garrett coaching method of him of don't turn the ball over and 5 years of getting his ass kicked in the pocket basically by bad offensive lines, I think there is a internal mechanism in him to abandon the pocket and run when the internal mechanism in Tyrod or Tommy DeVito is, hey, I'm just going to give my guy a chance.
So I want to nail you down on this. From your informed opinion, if there was a reasonable chance to trade up to number 3 or number 2, would Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll want to pull the trigger? Not would they be let there, would they want to?
I think they would want to. Yes, I think they would want to.
Okay, I like hearing that. But you also mentioned the let part of this.
I think they have to. But I think they have to know. If I was, it's so weird that these conversations never happen because like they obviously need to happen and yet they never do. I would go into my boss and say like, hey, before I make this life-changing career decision, what am I working with here? Am I working on am I on a short leash? But these conversations never happen. They should happen. Joe Schoen should say to John Mara, hey, are we still on the same timeline here? Like you see this as a 2 or 3 more year kind of build that I'm going to get? Or like, am I in pressure in November? Because Joe Schoen, like you can't trade up to 3 if you're going to lose your job in November because now you have too many quarterbacks and not enough other stuff. So if I'm losing my job, then I'm sitting there at 6 and I'm picking Odunze, or I'm trading back to 9, picking Odunze and getting another asset that I could use on quarterback. So, yeah, but I think because the other flip side of that, guys, somebody listening to your podcast right now is going to say, well, if they pick the quarterback, that's their inherent reason for job security to be like, well, John, yeah, we went 5-12, but look how promising Daniels is. You got to give us more time. Like we just picked you a quarterback and like you got to let us develop him. That could be the flip side of my argument would be that could be their soft landing spot is we have this asset. You got to give us time to develop him.
All right, let's unpack the other part of that where you kept on using the word let, and that's obviously from an ownership perspective. And I want to see if this match is we talked about it on the pod and someone posted it and it went kind of viral. It's like we had been told that there is a mindset, even if this is just like you already picked your quarterback when you signed him $160 million. Is that coming from is that the sense coming from the ownership group?
No, I mean, yes and no. Like publicly, the fans keep telling me like, oh, you got to let them pick their quarterback. I believe they already picked their
They did, but if they will he let them admit their mistake and change it?
Yes, I think so. I want to say, and I know this won't be popular, I do not believe that there was and when I say I do not believe, I mean from asking around, the people I know do not believe that re-signing Daniel was not, I know it's a popular, sexy thing among the fan base. It was not a John Mara edict of like, we have to re-sign Daniel Jones, tie Joe Schoen up to a chair and, gag him until he agrees with the John Mara plan. No, that was not the case.
I agree with you 100% on that point when you're talking about the 2023 offseason. But is there pressure to make it work with Daniel this offseason? Even if it's not, like you said, not a mandated, but we all know how that works, right? Is you can, the whole thing we always argue with the Chris Mara thing is like, yeah, you can make recommendations or make comments here and there. When you're the boss, you can say it's not a mandate or you're not meddling or whatever, but that does influence the way that you view. So, the scenario I'm trying to lay out is that would they be like, you know what, let's just pick a wide receiver at 6 instead of risking our jobs to trade up because at least the owner's all right with it and hope we can figure this out next year?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I can answer that.
Okay. All right. So that's what I wanted to know is
I would be guessing on that. I don't know that. I do think if you're asking me what you asked me a minute ago, do I think that ownership would let them make a mistake and pick another quarterback? I do. I think that as long as you're there, he's going to let you do what you think is best. But you are burning through equity very quickly if you bench somebody he had to cut an $82 million check to.
Okay. All right. So the question now, I guess, is how much is that threat of you better figure this out influencing the Schoen decision on this. But even though I just don't think there's really unfortunately, because they won a few games, that the answer really isn't even fully on the menu. Unless one of those top 3 teams is willing to trade down.
Today, February 18th, what do I think they're most likely to do is draft a second-tier quarterback and have a preseason competition between Daniel and that guy. And when I say preseason, Daniel might not even be healthy enough to have that competition. An ongoing into the season competition between Daniel and insert second-tier
What is a second-tier quarterback?
What makes you think that?
Well, also, let's even break this down, because there's obviously, I think, a second-tier quarterback is outside of the top 3.
Yeah,
I'm not asking you to pin down McCarthy or Penix, but
well, I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know who. Like, some people want to tell you that McCarthy's could be the number 1 overall pick in the draft,
right? And that's what makes this tricky.
Some people tell you he's the 4th best quarterback. Some people say he's the 4th best quarterback, but he's good enough to go 6th overall.
Well, let's just cut out McCarthy. Let's just talk about guys that aren't viewed as that. Like, what makes you think that they would want to take a Knicks, Penix, fill in the blank in the second round?
I just think it's less risky, and then you have you can get your premier asset at one of the other huge holes that they have, probably wide receiver, and then still address quarterback in a way where, okay, now we have 2 possible solutions. We have a competition. Daboll believes in competition, and Schoen believe in competition. So we have a may the best man win between Daniel Jones and Bo Nix to prove themselves.
I kind of hate that. I hope that's not what happens. I'm kind of like a top of the. I'm a top of the first round or bust when it comes to quarterback for the most part.
So am I.
I want to push you a little bit on. I'm not gonna. Who told you this? But I do want to, because you mentioned about Jones, and so you mentioned players that had the opinion about, why is there a little bit of difference between any other quarterback and Daniel Jones? You mentioned players, coaches. Is there any other general broad title that you can give us?
People in the building.
People in the building. Are these people still in the building?
Some are.
Some are. Okay, and some are not.
And some are not.
Okay.
But again, I also said some people in the building also say, look, it's very obvious. Because you get it from one, and then you get it from one group of people say, hey, how come this looks so obvious? So you say, oh, you know what? Let me ask somebody else. Why do they think it looks so different? And the number one answer you get back is the offensive line. So, yeah.
I'm going to wind you up.
One player said something to me after the season that was very similar to the quote Garrett Wilson said about the Jets that got a lot of publicity, probably because he's Garrett Wilson and because he put his name on it. But one player in the Giants locker room said something very similar. I don't have it in front of me, but paraphrased, it was very similar to what Garrett Wilson said, which was like, I look around the league and I see teams throwing the ball all over the place, and it looks so easy for them. And every time it looks so hard for us, it shouldn't be as hard as it is. That's something Garrett Wilson said something like that about the Jets, and a player in the Giants locker room on Baggy Day said something very similar to me. It was like, I look around the league and I can't figure out why other teams move the ball so easily and we have so much trouble getting first downs.
I have to agree with that player.
I want to get you wound up. What year will the Giants be allowed to let Saquon go?
Be allowed by who?
By you.
That's a great way to phrase it. To me, they should keep him for this year and next year. So 2026 would be the first time I would say I could understand how he's not on the team. But they better have another. The real answer, I guess, let me rephrase that, Bobby. When they have 2026 or when they have somebody else who's their best offensive playmaker. Because I'm not convinced that in 2026 he still won't be the best offensive playmaker. How long have we been having this debate? 3 years? They've had since they traded Odell Beckham. It's been like, oh, well, running back, blah, blah, blah. Well, I hate labeling Saquon Barkley as a running back. He is their best offensive playmaker. Period. Running back, I don't care. Receiver, tight end, fullback, whatever. He's the guy. that defense. I was talking to players at the Super Bowl. Hey, what do you think when you play the Giants? Just tape recorder off. What do you play? How do you approach the Giants when you play the Giants? Guys on both teams. You stop Saquon Barkley. Well, what if he's not on Saquon? What if you don't have Saquon Barkley? They don't worry about anybody. I was like, well, they do have Darren Waller, Darius Slayton. Guys were like, so I don't understand. So the answer to that is when you have another weapon defenses have to worry about is the first time you're okay not to have Saquon Barkley.
Okay, I feel like we get bogged down. This is I'm not like I agree with I'm not anti running back, right? Here's where I am at the point with Saquon Barkley though, is that we're not coming off of year 4, year 5. We're going into year 7. He's missed games almost every single year, and when he hasn't missed the games, he's been banged up and it's affected his performance. He had a bad statistical season. Now it's behind a very bad offensive line, right? I thought Saquon didn't make very many mistakes this year, but he also doesn't do the things that he did early in his career. Had no runs over 40 yards. His explosive run rate was way down. Wouldn't that be like, okay, this is not what we want to invest 2 years of money, like 2 years of a cap hit into?
And especially, Ryan, I'll even throw this question on top of it. Bobby mentioned the offensive line. This offensive line is not going to be fixed in one offseason. Hell, it hasn't been fixed since before Saquon Barkley was drafted. Are we comfortable giving Saquon Barkley $10 million plus a year? And I understand it's
to
only
have
for
a
2
bad
years.
running game.
To have a bad running game because this offensive line isn't going to be fixed, and the NFL is just a natural game where your running game is kind of dependent on the performance of the offensive line.
Again, my argument always goes back to, guys, is like, I don't think I don't think the Chiefs need to pay Isaiah Pacheco a lot of money. They have Travis Kelce, a Hall of Fame head coach, Patrick Mahomes. Like, my argument is very Giants specific, and it's like, what is the Giants offense if Saquon Barkley's not here? Like, you gave me all these stats that are all true, right? He doesn't have the 40-yard runs anymore. He does get injured a lot. But, like, you're going to put in Matt Breida or, like, Eric Gray, who they didn't even trust to, like, run the ball in blowouts this year? Or, like, so, like, they didn't...
Well, they can't... They'd have to address the running back position. I'm not sitting here saying they're... I
So
don't agree that they're...
How have the Giants addressed the running back position so
Well, they've
far?
had Saquon Barkley, so I have agreed with them. They're not investing more.
So while they had him, they didn't invest in replacing him. Their attempts to supplement him have turned up Golden Tate, Kenny Golladay, Darren Waller, all guys who have not lived up to the billing. Harris Campbell, Kadarius Toney. Like, every time they've tried to do anything, it doesn't work.
Well,
so,
I want to use your line against you.
To me, it's like, keep your talented player because it's going to get worse without him. And it's like, well, how much worse could it get? Well, it could go from 6-11 to 1-17.
I wouldn't go that far. Here's what you mentioned before that they have a bad habit of doing surface level cleaning instead of a deep cleansing. I feel like giving Saquon anything even near the contract they offered him last year is surface level cleaning instead of looking at that deep cleanse.
Yeah, I mean, you could certainly, again, you can make that argument, sure, but you better have a plan. It better be like, okay, then we're getting T. Higgins, like whatever T. Higgins wants, and he's now the number one offensive option. We're getting T. Higgins, and we're gonna pair him with, I don't know, whoever, like some.
But if they don't get those guys, they're screwed anyways. Even if they have Saquon Barkley, because they've had Saquon Barkley, they've been bad offensively for, three out of the last 4 years.
I think people undersell. Like, you just say bad. Like, I think you don't realize.
31st, 30th.
Yeah, I think people don't realize how many warts he covers. Like, as bad as the offensive line is, it's those 2-yard runs that people kill him for are 0-yard runs with somebody worse than him. Like those, the catches, the win against Washington is a loss without Saquon Barkley making the catch on the sideline or the touchdown catch or the break the tackle touchdown. And you might be like, well, who cares if we win 4 instead of 5? But John Mara cares. Yep. And a lot of Giants fans who care about winning on Sundays care. So like, I just think
Yeah.
people, it's bad.
I just feel you can make that argument for a lot. Like, without Darius Slayton, they don't go to the playoffs last year. I'm not going to pay him a top 5 wide receiver contract, you know. And I'm not comparing. I guess I am kind of comparing it. My point is just like, if we were coming off year 4 and we had that 4-year body of work with Saquon, or 3, say the ACL injury doesn't happen, I'm on board with you. But I don't see the same guy. And I also, from Saquon's point of view, is like, why would you want to be down here? Because they have wasted your career, like you've said, and it feels like this is a marriage kept together for optics, because the Giants don't want to let it go of their best playmaker, like you said, their only playmaker, and Saquon Barkley wants to have a career after the NFL as a Giants lifer, and all that comes with that.
I think that's exactly, I would agree with you. Like, I think it's a marriage of convenience at this point, and they might both be better off going their separate ways, but
it's a marriage that's staying together simply for the kids. And I do agree with you, where I think honestly, one of the best arguments for Saquon Barkley is, well, look at the team without him. But still, the fact that it is like so bottom of the barrel even with him, that's why I think it's like, it's not surviving without Saquon. It's trying to learn to walk and trying to end it. And there is a way. I really do think that there is a way with Brian Daboll to survive without this. Because really, I think it is a point where you could see the benefits of having him, because like you said, well, who are you going to worry about? But I think that's the next Giants challenge, is that they need to actually invest and actually get right. Who is a defense going to invest in that is not a running back that is behind a very bad offensive line and a very bad offensive situation for many, many years?
Look, you heard Kayvon say on the whatever podcast that was with
Carmelo Anthony's.
Carmelo Anthony.
Like, you heard him say, like, I thought Saquon should have got paid before Daniel Jones. He's not the only one in the locker room who feels that way. They all realize that Saquon carried them to the playoffs, and not Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones was a caretaker who didn't turn the ball over in his career best year, and Saquon carried the offense to the playoffs. They know that. They're not the only one who feels that. He's not the only one who feels that way. And Saquon is, without question, the leader of that the leader of that locker room. What he did, getting guys to buy into Tommy DeVito, really helped. Tommy DeVito wouldn't be this. The Giants wouldn't have won those 3 games if Saquon didn't say to guys, "Hey, guys, this guy has something special. We can win with this guy. Let's not quit on this guy." Like, that stuff matters to John Mara. That stuff matters in a locker room. So, like, his voice is spoken. There are a lot of guys that are going to look around, and I know Dexter Lawrence got paid, and I know Andrew Thomas got paid, but is Joe Schoen going to start his 3-year tenure with, I can't pay James Bradbury, I'm going to let him go to the Eagles. I can't pay Saquon Barkley, who's the most popular player in my locker room, I'm going to let him go. And I can't pay Xavier McKinney, who just played every single snap and had the best year of his career. Oh, but he plays safety, and safety's like the running back of defense. We can't pay a safety. What message are you sending to your locker room? Guys who literally play injured, who perform on the field, who lead in the locker room. We're just going to use you up to the end of your contract and then toss you to the side. That is not a good message to send. I'm sorry.
Well, let's talk about Xavier McKinney, because Xavier McKinney should be back on the Giants next year. Do you believe that he's going to be back? And if not, why not?
No, I don't believe he's going to be back.
Why not? Because to me, that's a bad look to let a guy coming off of his rookie contract, who's performed well and has been a headache at times, but not the worst headache in the world, even though those things tend to get a little worse as they get paid, though.
Positional evaluation.
That's crazy to me. They paid They paid the guys in Buffalo.
They didn't pay Julian Love. They replaced Julian Love with dirt cheap Jason Pinnock. If you believe, generally speaking, if you don't believe in paying a running back, you don't believe in paying a safety. That's just the way it is. generally positional, talking to executives around the league, if you don't believe in paying a running back, you see safety as the running back of defense. That's how guys around the NFL feel. So I don't know that Joe Schoen feels that way. Like you said, they did pay the guys in Buffalo, but that happens to, I mean, they also paid, Joe Schoen was also in Miami when they paid Reggie Bush, and he obviously doesn't believe in paying a running back. So just because your boss feels one way doesn't mean you necessarily agree with him. Maybe that's an area where Brandon Beane and Joe Schoen differ. So, or diverge. So I think Xavier McKinney sees himself as a top 5 paid safety. I mean, he told me this year he believes he's a Hall of Fame caliber player. So he is not going to be looking for a hometown discount. So I think he'll be that. And I think the Giants will be looking to take that money. I think they'll make him an offer. I don't think it'll be what he's looking for. I think he'll hit the open market. And I think the Giants will use that money. Look, they have wide receiver, cornerback, right tackle, probably running back, maybe tight end. Guys.
Why wouldn't they tag him though?
Because that's what's the tag for a safety? Isn't
16.
it like, yeah, I mean,
I can't get
like,
behind letting
what do they
McKinney
have?
go.
They only have, what do they have?
They have 20. They have 21 without cutting Mark Lewinsky.
So I mean, what are we talking about?
But though, I mean, they'll probably get the 36 to 40 once they restructure Thomas and Dex, and you know, contracts. The discussion is how backloaded are they, but contracts are just generally backloaded in the NFL. I mean, to me, I just this team is so devoid of talent. It would be shocking to get a guy who's been healthy out, you know, forgetting a 4-wheeler accident since his rookie year. Has, like you said, played all the snaps. It's not even like Landon Collins. I was on board with that, right? Like he only fit a specific role. McKinney can fit in any role, and he's going to look better in a Shane Bowen type of defense. Yeah. I just would not be on board. I would rather pay Xavier McKinney a top 5 safety contract, even though I don't think that's what he should get, than let him walk.
That's interesting to say, because I think that's where. I think it's going to be about money, and that's where they're going to have a pretty wide gap. Saquon and the Giants, I've written this a million times, had a gap of like $1 to $2 million in guaranteed money at the end of the year. It is mind-blowing that they could not get that done, because they would have had him last year for less than $10 million on the cap. We wouldn't even be having this conversation this year. He'd be on the team, which he should be. And then they could let him go next year. He wouldn't be on the 2025 Giants. They'd have had him for last year for less, this year when they need him still. And then again, let's go back to the Saquon argument. What does everything have to be colored through? It has to be colored through how much time do Daboll and Schoen have? If you're on the hot seat, you're going to let your best offensive player go? That's what you're going to do? If you're on the hot seat, you're going to let your what's McKinney, your second best defensive player? You're going to let him go? It's a very bold strategy for a team devoid of talent to let 2 of their 4 best players go in free agency. If you're going to do that, which it sounds like they're going to do, let's say their 4 best players are Dex, Andrew Thomas, Saquon, and McKinney. If you're going to let 2 of those 4 guys go, you better hit home runs in free agency and the draft that we haven't seen Joe Schoen or his predecessors hit in a decade.
All right, that's an interview. Last question. Do you have a Tony endorsement for this year? Or maybe like a front runners list?
I don't know. I feel like the scoops have been pretty diverse.
Yeah, so I've actually been keeping track, because this year I'm going total analytical, like, yeah, you know, talking Giants love times,
but you gotta have different levels of scoops. Like you gotta have.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah. There is different, you know, like me breaking the news that Carmen Brasilla was denied in it, or not Carmen Brasilla, the Falcons Alliance interview is not the same as, you know, McGahee got fired, which Ron on got.
Yes. I am surprised. I am surprised that Jordan has not won the award in 3 years. He is consistently good. He's the kind of guy. What does he come in, second or third every year? I am surprised. There's a lifetime achievement factor that I'm surprised. He's consistently good every year. I'm surprised he hasn't won it yet.
Well, he's the
So he's
Buffalo
off to
Bills.
he's off to a good start, right? And he thinks I railroad him, right? But
Yeah, I don't know if that's an endorsement on my part, but he is a consistently good reporter who has not won it yet.
He's had a good start to the offseason. He'll be on this show before free agency starts, so that'll probably help. He also does fill in the Talking Giants. I mean, he has me on his podcast, so that helps. He got screwed. He came very close to beating Art in year 2, but I tried to give him some news. You know, and anytime I hear some stuff, you know, like, hey, what do you think of this? That Nick Gates and Ben Bredesen were going to be rotating when Nick Gates came back, or when Feliciano got healthy and Gates had that good game at center. And he's like, I'm going to post that tomorrow. And I said, screw it. So Danny King out of nowhere broke that news. Then when Jordan tweeted out, didn't credit Danny King. And that, I'm telling you, he lost.
That hurt him.
He lost first place votes to nothing. He probably would have won year 2.
Yeah.
Credit Danny King.
Yeah, that's the number one rule. Is if Danny King breaks news, credit him. That's the quickest way to get the fan vote in the Tony Awards.
Yeah.
All right, Ryan, we appreciate you jumping on with us. We will definitely catch up. Yeah, you know, once all this madness comes to a close after the draft. Where can people find your work?
nypost.com. I'll be at the combine. I'll be doing Giant stuff all off season. I've heard some things that I'm trying to confirm that could be roster development stuff, so stay tuned. I've been trying to confirm it for a couple weeks, so could have some breaking news that could boost my even though I'm ineligible, my candidacy. So maybe a little teaser there. I could have some news.
You gave us the huge nugget that last year it was coming off of a playoff year, not a year of so much instability, but it was huge at the time about Cordell Flott.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah,
about like kind of going back to the.
You know what happened? You know what happened? I told you guys that Cordell Flott, that the Giants thought he was better suited for the slot, and then training camp opened and he was on the outside, and I got bombarded with your audience being like, "You said he was going to be in the slot. You know, you were wrong." Blah, blah,
but then
blah,
they
blah,
moved him back to the slot.
Yeah. Then what happened was I texted the people who told me, and I was like, "Hey, you guys told me he was going to be in the slot. I look kind of foolish." They're like, "No, we told you he's more comfortable in the slot. The coaching staff still wants to try him on the outside." Fast forward like 3 weeks into the season, he's back in the slot. I get a text, "Bet you don't look so foolish now." I was like, "Oh, yeah. So, yeah, you were right." That's a good source. So, no, I could have some news, but yeah, people can find me nypost.com, and my X or Twitter or whatever is.
Can I say something so I can say it to you? Because I'm comfortable saying it to you. Beat reporters got to stop saying it's X, or just call it Twitter or call it every beat reporter. When they plug their Twitter, every single one. Whether it's not even just Giants people. It's when I listen to other podcasts, they all do the I don't know, is it X or Twitter? Just say Twitter.
Better. R.Y. Dunleavy.
Okay.
And remember, I'm not even a.
That's been on my chest for a long time.
What I'm really proud of as a Tony Award winner, which I really appreciate you guys giving me, is I'm not even a Giants beat writer. Don't forget that. I am not a Giants beat writer.
It's an indictment on some other people.
Paul Schwartz is the New York Post Giants beat writer. My colleague, I think he does a great job. But I am actually an NFL reporter who is 78% Giants, maybe 15% Jets, and the rest of the league. But I am not a 100% Giants beat writer, which makes it even cooler that I won this award. So
yeah, Jay Glazer, to me, I gave Jay Glazer my third place vote because, you know, to me it's about reporting on Giants news. All right, we got to end this episode. We're going a long time. Ryan Dunleavy, thanks for jumping on.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you, Ryan Dunleavy, for jumping on the pod. Justin, we'll be back Friday. Not exactly sure what we've got. Check out our Racing Radio podcast. That's coming out after the Daytona 500. And we will see. You got anything else, Justin, before we get out of here?
I mean, I feel like I don't want this podcast to be an hour and a half long, but I almost want to go back and re-listen to the interview because I need to like break down all all the nuggets that Dunleavy gave. However, if there is one, I think he's operating, when talking about Xavier McKinney, I think he is operating from a pre-Shane Bowen arrival and during Wink Martindale process. So that is the one thing that at least I remember before I go back and I re-listen that I kind of disagree with. I do think it's pretty safe that McKinney's back, so I kind of hope that Dunleavy's wrong and he is operating under Wink Martindale notions.
Yeah, maybe that's what we'll do on our next podcast, is our Giants pending free agents as we go into the combine and all that stuff. But we'll figure it all out. All right, we will see you guys on Friday. Hope you guys enjoyed the Daytona 500 as much as me and Justin did. We'll see you then. Until then, let's go Big Blue.